Homework 11, Gathering and Organizing Data. This is the first of 3 homework assignments that will make up the content of the final exam. So needless to say, your final exam will not be cumulative this semester due to the crazy things going on around the world with the COVID-19 outbreak. But I digress. In this series of videos, we're going to talk about gathering and organizing data. Most of these things are fairly intuitive. The only one that might not be is a stem and leaf display, but we'll talk about that in the last video. But before we get into ways to organize data, and in the next series of videos, we'll look at ways to picture data, I need to point out that data comes in 2 flavors, if you will. There's qualitative data and quantitative data. Of course, the root words of qualitative and quantitative being quality and quantity. Qualitative data is non-numerical data that describes a characteristic. Think of it as a question that you would ask whose answer is not a number. What state were you born in? What type of vehicle do you drive? Do you have a job? Have you ever been married? What is your hair color? What is your favorite type of pet? Every one of those questions, if you asked somebody, they would give you an answer that is not a number, but rather a characteristic. So anytime you gather information where you ask somebody a question whose answer is not a number, that data is called qualitative data. Quantitative data, on the other hand, is numerical data that measures a quantity, as its name clearly implies. So if you think about asking a question of someone, if the answer they give you is a number, then you are gathering quantitative data. Usually. There are a few exceptions. But for example, if I ask you, how old are you? How many states have you lived in? How long have you owned your car? How much is your monthly rent? How tall are you? How many girlfriends have you had? Or any other question whose answer is a number, then you are gathering quantitative data, usually. I say usually because there are some numbers that are actually served more in a qualitative capacity than a quantitative capacity. For example, if you were to look at people on a professional football team and ask them, what is your player number? They're going to give you a number, but that number is not really measuring anything. It's more describing them. So most of the time when you ask a question and the answer is a number, you are gathering quantitative data unless that number is not actually measuring anything. What is your house number? That's not measuring anything, so that would actually be qualitative. That being said, in this section, if they're numbers, it's quantitative, and if they are not numbers, it is qualitative. The rest of these videos in the series are going to be about ways to organize data. And although there are more than 2 ways to do them, we're only going to focus on 2 ways. One is called a frequency distribution, which can be applied to both qualitative and quantitative data. Although when applied to quantitative data, there's a little bit more work to do, as you will see soon. And we're also going to look at what's called a stem and leaf display, which can only be applied to numbers, only be applied to quantitative data. So let's take a look in the next video about how to construct a frequency distribution for qualitative data.